Welcome back to another episode of What Are You Made Of with your boy, the unstoppable Mike C-Roc. I am in the house today with a friend of mine from Clubhouse who I actually ran into while I was out in San Diego a couple weeks ago. Greg Reed's secret knock event. And Rich comes up to me and I'm like, oh, you're Rich from Clubhouse. And we decided to do a podcast swap, which means that I go on his show, he goes on mine. And I love doing that. And I've built some of the greatest relationships in doing so with other podcast hosts. So Rich Goldstein works with entrepreneurs to protect their products and brands with patents and trademarks. He has obtained over 2,000 patents for his clients and is the author of the American Bar Association's Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. Rich, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me here, Mike.
Yeah, man. Look, I'm glad to have you on. I appreciate you having me on your show. It's funny when we were just on your show, we were talking about a lot of times you go on shows and podcasts, you're kind of talking to yourself. Yeah. And sometimes I'll listen to a podcast that I do, whether it's on somebody else's or my show, and I'll be laying in bed. My team sends it over for QC and I'll just take a peek at it. And I tell my wife, I don't even remember saying that. So it's kind of funny how you get outside of your head sometimes. But anyway, before we go into any further, I want to ask you the question we start the show every single time with. Rich, what are you made of?
Yeah, I love the question. I love the comment you just made too about talking to yourself, because it makes so much sense. Like the thing that popped in my mind is what I'm made of is empowerment, empowering other people. And it just really occurs to me that as I'm doing that, I'm also seeking to convince myself that, hey, you can do this, you're powerful. And so it's very interesting. The thing that I set out to do for other people is also what I'm constantly in conversation with myself about.
So what specifically is it that you're made of? Empowerment? Is that what you'd say? That's the final answer?
I would say I'm made of empowerment. I'm made of you can do it. You might not see it, but I see it and you can do it. And that's kind of the conversation I have with myself too, I think.
And now we talked about this on your show. A lot of the things that, we see some of the bigger names out there, like Gary Vee and Grant Cardone and Tony Robbins and all that. A lot of times what they're talking about at that time or going through presenting is what they're dealing with in their personal life or something that they had to overcome in their lives. So when you talk about empowerment, take us back to when you're a kid or wherever that came into where you felt like that was something that usually it's something when you champion something, it's something you overcame.
Yeah. And so I would say as a kid, I didn't have a strong sense of I had big dreams, but at the same time, I had a feeling that maybe I couldn't do it. Maybe I wasn't capable of doing it. Maybe I wouldn't be able to make the right social inroads to make something happen. I think always had doubt about my ability to get other people to play in my sandbox. Right. And I think we talked a little bit about sales on my podcast too. And I think I've always been a natural at sales. And I think the thing that kind of got me to that place was recognizing that, hey, I've got to figure something out here. I got to figure out how to get the other kids to come to my birthday party or how to get invited or whatever to kind of, I always felt like it would take work to kind of get my belonging and my place in things. And I think that's where a lot of it got developed.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. You look at people that have created big audiences, big customer, clientele bases, big followings or communities. And it seems that we watch from afar. It seems like it happens like that. We don't see all the journey that they've had to go through that. Now I've had events where I've gone to and, I've had 2 people show up, or we didn't even end up having the event because nobody signed up. Right. And then you go to some of them and people sign up and then they don't show up to the event. And it's very discouraging when you're first starting out. And, for those that continue on and grow those big client bases or followings, you got to give them a lot of credit because, man, I mean, it is a humbling, discouraging thing when you run into that. And I remember when I was at GrowthCon, Grant talked about the fact that his first GrowthCon was actually, they never even numbered it. This was I think the 5th GrowthCon, but there was really 6, or this was the 6th and there was really 7 because nobody knew about the first one because it was such a big failure. Right. Yeah. You don't hear about that stuff. So like when you started, starting to grow your business and what have you, like, did you experience that with your big dreams that you had? Did you experience that where you first set out and difficult,
Yeah.
having a
Well,
hard time with that?
well, it's interesting. I mean, like I kind of did something that was extremely unusual. I created a challenge like that. Just it was built in. It's like I started my own law firm right out of law school, which the immediate question is, well, where am I going to get clients from? And so I kind of started with a built-in challenge of the seemingly impossible of like being a newbie and yet getting clients. And kind of the thing that I did to kind of seek to make myself to prop myself up into something important, even though I was an absolute beginner, was I started a magazine. I started a magazine for inventors. So I started to show inventors like how they can go about getting their ideas protected and build prototypes and things like that. And in the magazine, I advertised my services, my law firm. So it's like, I give them something which helped to empower them, something which helped them to see a pathway forward. And then they see this law firm that's a part of that. And so immediately it gets associated with part of the path towards making things possible. And then, so that's how I started really to, um, to get some business, to get clients in a nearly impossible situation of just starting from nothing. And
How did you know how to do that? Like, how did you come up with that idea?
when I was in college, I actually, a friend and I, uh, together, we started a small magazine for campus, on campus. It was like they installed a cable TV system. This is back in the early 90s, right? They installed a cable TV system where all of a sudden, students were able to get TV reception where there was no reception, there was no ability to get TV, and so just to even know what's on TV, I mean, your typical student's not going to buy a TV guide. And so what
Right.
we did is we created a TV guide. We found the company that assembled all of the information for local newspapers, like all the TV guide information. And we got the info. We published it. We published it in like a 16 or 24 page booklet for the week. We got advertisement from local nightclubs and sandwich shops and pizza shops and Chinese food delivery. And so we had a business by creating that magazine. So that's kind of how I knew how to do the magazine. But then I guess it was just a matter of seeing a need for inventors that had me create the magazine for inventors. So I guess I was doing content marketing in print form in the 90s.
Well, how did you distribute that to find, to get to the inventors? Like, how did you, I
Okay,
don't, I don't remember how that
so
worked back in the
the
day.
inventor magazine, the way we distributed, first of all, we bought a list. I bought a list of inventors and we mailed it to them, and also had a subscription form in there. And then we found that there were these libraries around the country called patent depository libraries, where there was a microfilm collection of patents where inventors would go to try to look up their own idea and see if it exists. And so we contacted all those libraries and we worked out distribution agreements where they would have copies on hand to give to people that were going to search their inventions. Um, and um, and so that's kind of how we got it rolling. And then also, it got there was certain inventor shows where I took out a booth, not for the law firm but for the magazine, to kind of get new subscribers and to give out copies. And it's funny though that led to so many other things, so many other relationships, just by going to those trade shows. Got to know other people that were similarly situated, that had um, my potential clients as their clients. And it led to a whole bunch of different things, including teaching at the Learning Annex in Los Angeles and San Francisco and New York, where I did a class on inventions. And back then, I would do a class once a month in each place and get maybe one or two clients, which was a lot. And so I guess I was scrappy, and kind of going back to what we were talking about with sales before, is like when you're selling, then you create your own destiny.
Yeah. Cross pollination is what you saw at those events, right? Like you could see in collaboration with others. We see a lot of that in what we're doing with the tech space as well, because there's a lot of other platforms that can benefit us and we can help with them, integrations and what have you. So how did you get interested in patent law of all
Well,
things?
it's interesting. So I studied electrical engineering in college, and then I got interested in entrepreneurship, and I thought about changing my major to business. But then I learned about patent law, where you could essentially, um, you know, go to be an engineer, go to law school, and essentially be qualified to practice patent law. You have to be an engineer and a lawyer. So I heard about that. I finished electrical engineering, and then I went to law school. And then also part of what was going on then too uh, was the realization that being an engineer would mean working on the same project day in and day out for years at a time, some little piece of some system, not even a whole thing,
Right.
a little piece of something. And I was like, that just wasn't for me and my ADD personality. So I learned about patent
Yeah.
law, which then going on to law school, becoming a patent lawyer, now I get to work on something different every day.
Now, when I want to ask questions on the patent, but I also want to find out what you're made of. So let's go back before I go. Let me ask one question before I start talking more about, like, things you've been through. But when in tech, like, you get a place like Clubhouse, for example, like, when does it make sense in tech, especially software, not necessarily hardware, to get a patent?
Yeah, I answer it two different ways. One is at an earlier stage, as you know that you have something that's really distinct. I mean, if you're at the stage where you say, I have an idea for a new social media platform, probably too early. But once that solidifies into something that's unique, that might be the time you look into it. The other way I would answer the question is, like, as early a stage as you have resources to do it, because you don't want to starve off the other resources, or starve off the other potential uses for your resources by just pursuing IP. I mean, I know too many people that it's like they've got $50,000 and they want to spend 30,000 of it on patenting and IP. Just doesn't make sense. If you've got $100,000, it probably pays to invest like 15,000 into IP or something like that. It's got to be in proportion, and then continually do that as the company grows. When you've got Series A with 1.2 million, you probably want to take something like 50 or 75,000 and put it towards IP at that point. Because the way it also goes is that when you grow into those future funding rounds, and even when you get to exit, the IP investment you make is going to have a huge ROI in those future funding rounds in terms of valuation. And when you go to exit, I mean, it could be a multiplier.
Now, and do you do trademarking too, or
Yes.
just patents?
And by the way, trademarking is a no-brainer at the very earliest stages. Too many companies don't bother to protect their name, and they get to be 7-8 figure businesses, and they still haven't protected their name. And by this point, maybe now there's some issues around protecting it, where protecting your trademark is a lot less expensive than a patent, typically just a few $1,000s. And it's a step that you always should take. And no matter how small you are, if you're serious about that name and that branding, you should always protect it, because that could absolutely be a deal killer if you go to exit your business and you don't have the trademark sorted out.
And so, just so everybody's clear, a trademark protects the name of the company and more along the lines of branding, and not just the name, but a logo, for example, right? And patent protects the IP.
Patent protects like the product, what's different about the product itself. And yes, the trademark is for the branding, which could be the name or the logo or slogan that you use to sell the products. And content is protected by copyright. So like the content of your videos, the content of your web page, anything like that is protected by copyright. So that's kind of how it works with patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
And when it comes to tech, can another tech company just change a little bit of something and avoid violating a patent?
Well, it depends. And here's the thing, and this is what most people don't realize. Like, people say, well, yeah, patents are really important. You got to get a patent because it protects your technology. And other people will say, well, patents aren't really worth it because you change a little thing and you get around the patent. And in truth, both of these schools of thought are correct, just at different times. And the thing that makes the difference of whether you can get a broad patent that covers a whole idea or a very specific patent that's very easy to get around, it depends on how new the idea is to begin with. If you come up with a whole new concept, you could protect that whole new concept. But a lot of times in tech, you are dealing with something that there are a lot of things that are really close to it already. And so that maybe you're getting a patent on the very specific way you're doing it. So it's a rather limited patent. So that's what it depends on. It's like if you've really come up with a whole new concept, you can protect that. And then someone changing it just a little bit is not going to get around your patent. It's going to be a very valuable patent.
So somebody like Clubhouse, for example, since we met on Clubhouse, and then as soon as they came out and they caught fire, got momentum, then you got Twitter, you had Spotify coming out and all these other social media platforms going towards that. What could they have done differently to prevent that? Or was there anything?
Well, I mean, the thing is, it wasn't actually that unique. It's just kind of caught fire with Clubhouse. Like the idea of an audio chat application wasn't that groundbreaking. I mean, there were some things in there that they did that were distinct. I mean, they could have, like something like the fact that your followers control the rooms that you can see, and like some of that methodology could have been protected, but I think the whole thing is that this whole idea of an audio chat application wasn't novel to begin with. They just kind of ran with it. There were examples that dated back some years before that of other things that were similar. So that wasn't really their best avenue of protecting themselves.
And so their value comes from the brand and also the data they're collecting from the audience users, right?
Exactly. So their value really comes from the branding. And there's probably more that they could have done to preserve that branding. Yeah. I feel like they could have preserved more, like even the look of it, the look of the Clubhouse interface and the way it laid out with the different icons, with different photos, each user with their picture in a circle and the name underneath it, the microphone in the lower right corner. It's like things about that look. They probably could have taken better steps to protect those things and prevent others like Twitter from just coming in and really copying it.
Yeah, and it's not very sexy looking app, like interface. Like it's kind of plain brown, like, and also, Rich, like when people are talking, you always have to search to find out who's talking. Like it should be a lot easier to see who's talking. And I don't know why that's so difficult. Maybe there's something behind that. But so Rich, take us back, like as you were growing your law firm, or maybe you were in college or what have you, like what were some moments of, catalytic moments for you?
Yeah. Well, one big catalytic moment was, so first of all, when I'm in law school, along with all the other law school students, it's like the whole intention is to get those job offers when you graduate. It's to get the offer from a law firm that's for you to have a job as an associate where they'll work you 70 to 80 hours a week with that big, and this was like, early 90s, like $80,000 paycheck, right? Like that was like, wow, like that would be incredible. And that's what you were gunning for. And so second to that was getting a summer associate position at a law firm, which is where you get to work during the summer and they pay you well for the summer. And hopefully by the end of the summer, they give you that offer. So that was the path that I was on. And then I get one of these coveted summer associate positions. I'm working at the law firm for the summer. You get there and they don't really tell you what the rules are of the job. They don't tell you like what your hours are, what time you're supposed to be there in the morning, what time you need to stay until. All they told us was, well, if you're here past 8 p.m., we'll reimburse you for dinner. Okay, that's a bit of a guideline. And so we kind of, over the first couple of weeks, I was there with a few other summer associates, and we were just kind of like, all right, well, it's 7 o'clock. Could we leave yet? Like, do we stay? Like, what do we do? Like, and it was a big mind game. There's a big mind game going on with it. And I was kind of like entrenched in that mind game until one day, about 2 weeks in, I had friends that were going out for drinks at a place called Merchants on First Avenue, New York City. It was a big kind of 20-something hotspot back then. And so I was like, you know what? I could probably go. So 6:30 p.m., I get on the elevator and I hit the down button to the lobby. I hit the lobby button. And then another, like a senior associate gets on the elevator and looks at me and he says, only half a day. And I was like, wow, I'm leaving at 6:30. And that's the response I'm getting. I'm like, F this, right? I decided at that point that I don't want that offer. I don't ever want to work at a law firm again. I decided I was going to spend the rest of the summer learning what I can and then start my own when I graduated. So that kind of just woke me up from my dream of like, I'm going to follow this traditional path of working at the big law firm. And then I'll be on a 10-year tractor path, partner path where over the course of the next 10 years, I'm now hoping to get given the position of partner, right? So
Yeah.
I just, all of that just went away in a moment. And I said, no, no, I'm going to do it my way. And that was a pivotal moment right there.
And then going into starting the business.
Yeah.
And then, what, I look at what we're doing, and, I have a mortgage company. There's been many a moment where I'm like, oh, I can't deal with this shit. What were some things that come to mind when you're thinking about once you got into business that were moments like that?
Well, like, payroll. It's like over the course of 28 years, like I can't even count on both hands, both feet, and all of my kids' hands and feet, the number of times I've been like, oh, we got payroll this week, and where's the money going to come from? Kind of like scraping bottom, like I remember just like 3 or 4 years ago paying my $30,000 Amex bill with $30,000 100 in the bank, and so it's just like scraping bottom. It's just, that's how it is in business. And a lot of times when people ask me, having a law firm, about am I successful, my most common response is, well, 28 years later, I'm still here. And I think that's good enough, to still be here after 28 years in business is, that's a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've been there before, and, and we're in a space of mortgages, and usually it seems like during the holidays and wintertime, things get tighter. And I'm always like, we're always asking ourselves, man, is this the end? Every year, I've been doing this since 2006. Every year there's a moment in time. And I think most of the time it's December into January into February that we're like, this is the end. And then it always comes back. Yep. And you don't, but you don't, the crazy shit is that you don't remember the year before that it still came back. But, and I remember that, man. And like,
well, but this time is different.
Yeah. I mean, and you really think about that, and you see the credit card bill, 30, 40,000, whatever it is. And you're like, man, what am I going to do? And you got to move money around and get creative and this and that. And that's just part of it. And when you're going through it though, there's a sense of loneliness that comes in. And that's part of the reason I do this show, is because I want to expose this. Like, dude, everybody goes through this. Everybody does, man. And, it's those that figure it out and those that endure through it are the ones that come out on the other side. Now, Rich, I wanted to ask you about, like, what are your views on, and how do you approach not being the same situation? I don't want to say the same person, because we're never a different person. We're always the same being. But like, how do you approach being in a different situation from year to year to year and making sure that you're not staying put?
Yeah. I mean, in other words, how to continually grow.
Yeah. Grow or advance or, elevate,
Yeah. I mean, that's hard because we all like fall into patterns, right? And like our mind makes maps. And like, so when we see a certain situation, our mind remembers like a previous moment when it was like this, or so it seems, and then what we did. And so we just kind of tend to follow those patterns. So it's like, what interrupts those patterns? I find that continually meeting new people, meeting new entrepreneurs, and I go to a lot of events. And I think just getting to know different people that see things very differently is probably one of the best pattern interrupts that I know of, to kind of find new ways to do things, to find ways to not just do it the same way that I did last year, with the same familiar results and maybe have the opportunity for some breakthrough results.
Now, when you go to an event, how do you approach an event, and how do you going into it? And then once you're there, how do you approach, is it just meeting? Like I have a blueprint that I created that on how to get the most out of an event, but like, what is your approach to it? And is it intentional? Is it just go there and see who I run into and see how it goes? Like, what is your approach?
Yeah, it's actually rather not intentional. It is kind of like that. And I think maybe my typical approach in like going to events where I don't know a lot of people is that I look for ones that I at least know some people, right? I mean, so they're the familiar events that I go to where I know a lot of people. And really, I guess overall, my approach is that like I see people that I know, and I strengthen those relationships, and those people introduce me to new people. That's kind of how it goes. And so if I'm picking an event and I really don't know anyone, I'm probably not going to go to that event. I look for events where I know that I'm going to know at least some people that could then introduce me to other people. Because I find that if I just go to an event where I don't know anybody, I'm probably going to keep to myself. If I go to an event where I know some people, I'm going to be extroverted and exuberant and like just have lots of conversations. But if I really don't know anyone, I'm probably going to retreat a bit.
Are you more of an introvert when it comes to that then, than like strangers?
Well, I'm definitely an extrovert. I get energy from people, but I think I'm more like reserved when I don't know anyone.
See, I get a kick out of going someplace and people not knowing who I am, and I approach it like they know who I am. Mm-hmm. Not like I'm famous, but like I just go into it and I get a kick out of it. Like I get a kick out of brand new people, and just, like a lot of people have said to me in the past, like, I just feel like I've known you for a long time. Like, because I just, I want to, so the way I said that was more like people know who I am out there. Like more what I want to do is I want people to feel like I'm already like acquaintance with them. You follow me?
Accessible.
Yeah. So I get a kick out of that stuff. Like I go into those now. I'm not always comfortable with it, but I know that I need to lean into that. And so, the first time I went to Secret Knock, I didn't really know, 2 years ago. No, it was last year. I didn't know a whole lot of people. And it was kind of awkward because I'm used to these 10X events where I know everybody knows who I am, this and that. And then I go to this and it's like, wait a minute. And so that first one last year in San Diego was fun to really lean into that. And I get a kick out of that. So what's the vision for the future, Rich? Like what's on tap for this year, next? And what are you doing to change your condition?
Yeah, well, I'm scaling and looking for that sweet spot. Like there's a sweet spot in terms of revenue and in terms of the different things that I offer that I think is kind of what I've been aiming for a while. And so I'm scaling and I'm growing pretty quickly. And I think really what's involved now is just getting some good people on board, some good attorneys. I've got a fantastic admin team. I've got fantastic attorneys, and I need to increase bandwidth to get toward that sweet spot. And so I just need to bring some other, talented people onto my team.
And do you find yourself investing in the business a lot lately?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm all in on the business, and I'm constantly investing. I don't hesitate to invest in the business.
Yeah. I love that, man. Well, look, how can my audience reach you, engage with you further?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, if they want to kind of learn more about patents or see if it's a match to work with us, you can go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, and there are great resources there for learning about the patent process. And also if they want to learn about patents in general, I wrote a book for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. And it's on Amazon. And then I've got a podcast that you were just on, and looking forward to your episode coming out. And the podcast is called Innovations and Breakthroughs. And
awesome
stories that people tell about the path that they've taken.
Awesome. Well, look, I hope we have a lot of inventors in the audience, and you guys need to go get a patent from Rich and his company. Rich, thank you so much for being on the What Are You Made Of show.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks so much, Mike.
All right. Thank you for listening today to the What Are You Made Of podcast. You guys can subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. That would be great to keep coming back and get notifications when we push out another episode, which is 2 a week. If you like to watch these on YouTube, you can go to my YouTube channel, Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco. Love to have you there. And of course, go check out Blueprinted, BLOO printed.com. It's up and running. We want you there. We want you to check it out. And we'd love to hear your feedback, because that's how we're going to further innovate and develop the platform with your feedback in mind. Until next time, be unstoppable.